Hmm. There we are. Wow. Okay. Suddenly it works. Freak. Good day. Hmm. Well, we're streaming live. It's There we are. Wow. Okay. Suddenly it works. Freak. Scott Vineberg here. This is Super Solutionary, the beginning, kind of. I've been at this for most of my life, but especially the last, God knows, many years. And trying to do something about the cluster crack that's out there for God knows how long. Um, and really dancing through all sorts of possibilities about how to have an impact on the big mess that we see in front of us. And I want to start to break it down. We've really got a great team coming together around this, a decent idea of the theory of change, of how to impact things and actually make a dent in stuff. And I always favor dynamic conversation and processes, even if it's with myself, to get things started. I'm more get in the sandbox and play kind of person than just a strategic person, though there's a lot of that too. And so, this is an introduction, and it's really starting humbly from where we are, and just to give you all an idea of what we're up to and who I am and what the big idea is, and do my best to at least benchmark what it is right now so that it's understandable from the beginning. A little bit of a video diary in part of it. And we're going to have an interview this afternoon around community. I'm definitely a radical, free thinking and wild, experienced human being in so many ways. But, you know, my name is Scott Vineberg, birth name Scott Adrian Vineberg. And my Hebrew name, which was given to me and is registered with the synagogue when I was born or soon after I was born, but not my official name, is Avraham, which I've abbreviated by kind of download or instruction or just an artistic sense of it to Vrum instead of Abraham, thanks to a sadhu, a guru, not a guru, sadhu. It's just a devotional practitioner of an ancient sect in India who heard my name Abraham and said when I was at the Kumbh Mela event in 2001, Avram, Sriram, Sam, Sam. So I just go Vrum because it's faster and we're in a bit of a hurry, and it still evokes and honors my ancestry and ancient lineage, which I take really seriously, even in a contemporary modern scientific context. I'm a middle-aged dude who's done a lot of social entrepreneurship and 12 years in the world of plant medicine with ayahuasca and leading a community circle that way. That was probably my biggest thing. But I've had snowboard and skateboard shops that worked with at-risk youth without calling them that, and saw what social enterprise was, that you can do things in vital ways that were different from the mentoring organization that I also helped start around the same time at the beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, and got to see the vast difference between doing good and having to go for handouts, and when you go for handouts having to describe the subject the beneficiary in terms of their disadvantage to be able to sell it to the guilty and benevolently minded givers. Whereas in the skateboard shop, they were the hero. They were the agents of change. They really wanted to be seen for what they loved and what they were capable of doing. They wanted jobs. They would pay for things. They would scrap together the money. God knows they probably even stole money to be able to buy their skateboards, gear, videos, clothes, and whatnot. But it was in their joy. And the contrast between them, the money-making skateboard shop and snowboard shop and action sportswear and inline skate shop and the nonprofit thing, which was doing good, but not growing or thriving, and was just kind of always like pulling teeth out of the volunteers and even the kids to show up in a room that basically said, I'm a loser and I have to go and help these kids for the mentors. It was a delightful and charming experience for sure, but it was like 3 hours of time, really inefficient. And I don't even know how much mentorship helps, but not in that context where you're seeing someone as disadvantaged, victim, whatever. Agency, entrepreneurship, seeing people in their power, there was like a lab for seeing what you could do differently to make a difference, even if we didn't intend it with Escape Shop. Same subject clientele, same at-risk youth, not all of them, but many of them. And yet it was so much more vital and fun and didn't have any of the flavor of the other thing. And the same thing contrasting with my restaurant that I opened with some dear buddies back then, who were also my partners in the snowboard skateboard shop, where the restaurant was vital and fun and alive, and we were serving food, and there was no preachiness or heaviness or anything. So wondering along the way how to make a difference, and grew up in a family where there were a lot of beautiful things in the family, really great Jewish values of giving back to our own community, Jewish community, and our city, Montreal, where I'm from, and to the greater community in the world. My dad started some great projects around tolerance and promoting tolerance, not just for Jews, but between people of all different kinds in Canada. And it became a model in Canada. And my mom involved in politics and working on behalf of all sorts of that tended to be polarized sides of making sure that Quebec didn't separate from Canada, and also local politics, as a councilwoman in a little town called Hampstead, where I grew up, which is, pretty privileged Jewish neighborhood, but not like the poshest neighborhood in Montreal, but pretty dang close. And so I grew up with a lot of advantage, but also grew up with a household that had the fractious relationships inherited from, whatever lineages of having to leave pogrom-ridden lands. And so parents were in disarray, and there was definitely some fighting and anger issues that I inherited. And then also seeing our political disarray where I grew up, there was like this fight between the Anglos and the French people, between Quebec and Canada, and then this nervousness of Canada towards the US, and then being Jewish in Montreal and being the subject of a certain amount of racism and whatever around that stuff. And just with like, why are we fighting? Why can't we just get on and solve things? So, a lifetime has brought me around to this inquiry continually, and a certain sensitization and a clearing of some of my conditioned neuroses in response that isn't so constructive in conversations or in working in teams or in doing things. And along the way, I discovered ways of studying in a group at the college I went to, and then doing ceremony in a group. And we'll talk more about the importance and power of being in more subtle states for something quantum, something subtle to happen, to really generate connection with people. And then also how to do that through processes and practices of nonviolent communication and therapy. And then even more so recently, discovering the whole field and world of dialogue, deliberation, conflict resolution, these highly evolved arts that I started to do a deep dive in last year that point the way to some super solutions on how to deal with things. So long and short, I've spent my life being a solutionary, like many of us are. And more recently have come around to a deeper understanding of what the conditions and problems in our world are and how to best address them. So I'm just to introduce myself again, middle-aged, 58 years old, living in Topanga, California, originally from Montreal. I'm in a house that I built in Topanga, intending to broadcast from here conversations that would focus on what are the best solutions, what is the best set of strategies and approaches that we can each take in our lives and that we can take collectively to make a difference. And what the proposition is generally is, most people don't see a plan. They don't see a way forward, given what we're facing, right? In the US, we have Trump versus Biden, and everyone's like holding their nose, if at all, going to the voting booth to, vote against the other evil. And no real constructive pathway forward from either of them. A strong sense that our system has been co-opted in every way and captured by a wealthy few. And people don't know what to do about this in so many ways, right? And I know, and I feel that I have to do something about it. And I think many of us feel the same ways. So this is an invitation to join an inquiry with me that we'll be doing in YouTube and edited podcasts in short form that'll go into social, and a whole bunch of product and marketing strategies, as it were, to reach out to people to join us in a movement to do this together and to figure out the best ways to get the word out and to activate people and so on. I'll explain more of that in a little bit. So, part of it is for me to demonstrate exactly where I'm at. If I took you on a tour of my property, you'd see it looks really good, but it's also kind of shabby. It's not the regenerative paradise garden that I wish for. But you can't do that alone. And there's a limited amount of resources I have right now. And to beautify my space is not top of the list. It's more about how to make a difference. And so, what we're doing is emergent. I know what could and should be done. And so I'm starting with myself as I am and the team that I have and the best cooked up version of what I previously called World Better Faster or Indie White House or now Super Solutionary or Eden Cooperation. These all can join and go in the same direction. And I'll explain more about the theory of change in just a bit. And we're just going to go for about an hour today. And so I'm meeting myself where I am. I'm not trying to be more or less than who I am, because what's the point of that, right? We just are who we are. I'll have a great time having a diversion of my self-expression with buddies and friends. My oldest, dearest buddy, Bill Zaharkiw in Montreal, is like a homesteader just doing gardening in a town north of Montreal, a small village, as it were, and just almost feeding himself completely. And he's like, we really see, and he lives in many ways, the happy, devoted, like active, hardworking, but just doing what he loves to do most and wanting to build a whole life around doing that, propagate and share that way of good living on land in a place where you have to eke it out by anyone else's standards, where the season is like this short. It's the shortest growing season you could probably have for a really good veg garden. And he just nails it with it. He does such a beautiful job and he's learning and fumbling and everything. So the way that he's doing his gardening, and he's a genius sommelier as well, with like a nose that's like just gifted and just a brilliant guy. And, the frickin' Happy Show. There's a not so toward name that we have for the show that is just like authentically what we are. And we'll probably have a version with bleeps in it so that you don't have to have your kids suffer through it. But I'm going to be who I am. And the F word refers to something beautiful, and we need to redeem that. And I'm a little bit hardcore for that. So Super Solutionary is the meta brand that will take over its own thing and be noble and beautiful and sublime and sacred at all times. But it begins with, someone and a group of people who aren't perfect. And we model the way of doing what needs to happen in every village, every town, everywhere. A lot of our people literally live in and around Topanga or the west side of LA. And this is us. We're creating a node, an example of how to transform things. And it's going to be transparent in how I'm sharing it in an afternoon show about what I esteem to be the top issues and the top solutions, or in the quest of the top solutions. And I do this all the time. I'm all in every day, all day. The only exceptions are to have like once a week, usually with my daughters, Allie and Grace, who are wonderful humans doing great work in the world. Sometimes a walk or a dinner with friends. And otherwise, I'm in service full time, all the time. And why? Right? Because it's a war against, hence the military jacket. I should probably be wearing my raspberry beret. It's a war against stupidity and ignorance and an unintelligent de facto system. Right? How do I know that it's a stupid, ignorant, and unintelligent system? Do I need to explain? Right? Well, the why. We have a problem, world. The man, which is really the system, the collective self, is schizoid and confused. And I don't see it as other. It's in me and it's in the system, and it's with more wealth, power, and communications than any civilization has ever had. And we cannot grab hold of the steering wheel to figure out how to navigate. Instead, it's like pedal to the metal, straight off the cliff. And that's with all the industrial, computing, solar, universities, best systems in the world, tons of money pouring into nonprofits, foundations, think tanks, the wealthiest people in the world saying they can figure it out, and they certainly know better than the people. But while they have had command of the ship in the first part of the century and most of history, driving well, going along well, we're like a little too much exhaust in the entire ecosystem, right? A little too much um, smoke and CO2. Human caused or not, I don't care. The world's warming dramatically since when I was a kid. And if you go to places like Virginia, ice used to be on the river, and in 20, 30 years, this changes. That's not a natural pattern. But I don't even want to get into an argument about it. I don't care. I'm meeting people where they are. And if Americans feel that it's not a top 10 issue, then it's important to take a look at why. What are the important issues, right? And why aren't they getting addressed? So back to the main point, more wealth, more power, better communications than ever before. We're in the best possible machine. And the people driving, the people who control the capital and most of the decisions, are driving straight towards a cliff. More concentration of wealth, education levels not improving, and amidst chaotic conditions of climate change, the rising polarization of people as things are gamified for attention in zero-sum lose or win scenarios between competing media companies, or between competing parties, or between competing companies. It's just like all going for more money, more power, getting more of your advantage, your group's advantage, this group's advantage. And in the middle, in our political sphere, we're absolutely in paralysis. Nothing substantial is getting done about affordable housing, about cleaning up our water systems, or not depleting our groundwater too quickly that will be like Mesopotamia. Once was Eden, now is desert shitbag place, pardon my French. And then, the same for every previous great civilization that rose and then collapsed in its own poo, in its own successes, in the excess of its own waste and decimation of resources. So we're heading down in that direction. And yet, in spite of that, since 1972, Buckminster Fuller, who's really an engineer, from the engineering perspective, he said, everything that we need to satisfy every human need is loosely available right now. There's just a lot of waste and poor distribution. We can figure it out. But he estimated that it would take about 50 years for the world to maybe get a handle on it, was his prophetic prediction. And we haven't gotten a handle on it, just to say. And then from a spiritual perspective, I'm just going to bring up one of my other heroes, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This dude, he came up with the idea that, or not the idea, he's getting downloads per Kabbalistic spiritual faith, deep practice, impeccable in so many ways as a human, like a really, really good, like a really good, like Dalai Lama kind of character. Really led a huge expansion of an organization that was devoted to prayer and study and good works, mostly concentrated on the Jewish community, but also people really emanating. And his point was always, it's universal. We got to bring this out. And in 1991, he said, look, I've gotten the download long enough. The conditions are set for the Messianic era to arrive. There's no, whether it's an individual or a collective energy thing, we'll break that down in a minute. But he was like, the conditions are there. The same as Buckminster Fuller got a couple of decades earlier from an engineering perspective. And the Rebbe said, and in this 1991 speech that everyone references as being like a big shift in his approach and his urgency around it, he was like, what more can I say? That we must do everything we can through pragmatic tools to bring down a most supernal light into the world. Meaning the opportunity was there from his spiritual sensing. Maybe it's an elevated kind of intuition or collective spiritual intelligence, whatever it is, that thing that was manifested through beautiful, expansive community that he grew around the world that really inspired a lot of people to come back into faith and tradition in a positive context. Not perfectly, but very, very good. He said everything's ready for like a golden age, right, from a spiritual perspective, but through pragmatic tools. Back to Buckminster Fuller. What are the pragmatic things. What's the best thing you can do? Pragmatic is like a lever. Same force, lift a whole huge rock. Apply intelligence, spread intelligence way better than giving out fishing rods. You can communicate better. You can do things better. You can change things. That's pragmatic, right? And an American pragmatist philosophy kind of approach, John Dewey and the like. And then from an artistic perspective, a narrative perspective, William Gibson said, again, this is in the 1990s, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And like I like to say, it's more like the solutions are all over here, like a kid's messy room full of toys on the ground. And the only question is like, which is your favorite toy that would actually give you the most fun? In this case, would give you the most benefit, is our challenge. And we're not doing that. We're just like everyone's going after their favorite toy, puppies and kittens, or saving the abused animals, or addressing cancer with billions of dollars there, or dealing with politics from one side or the other, or whatever. There's a lot of whack-a-mole. Wow, that's a problem that concerns me. I'm going to put a whole bunch of money and attention on it. But is that the best move? So what are the best moves, right? Because we know that with all the genius of our society, all the wealth, all the ivory tower geniuses, all the think tanks, all the funds, all the social entrepreneurship programs, we're still going off the rails. All the people screaming about the environment, we're screaming about abortion, we're screaming about free choice, we're screaming about guns or gun rights, and none of it's getting better for anybody. Everyone's under stress around housing and affordable housing. The top 50 cities in America require one to have $100,000 of income for an entry-level home. Rent keeps rising, and they can't figure out how to build in cities affordably. There is no way to build affordably in cities, by the way, and we don't need to. So all of this points to increasing stresses, a limited pie that's not getting dramatically bigger at 3%, 4% growth per year, and concentration with every new tool as we have accelerated the number of power tools and their power, AI, robots, quantum computing, fusion energy. These will all accelerate the same propensities that every previous tool we gave to the superpower dudes, or that they took command of, and we know better. The people couldn't possibly know better. I went to Stanford. The people couldn't possibly know better. You can't give people the keys. They're idiots. That's the underlying thinking of the noble elite. But in the meantime, they're getting it wrong. And more power means accelerated schizoid consequences, divisiveness. So is there a plan B? And people don't like it when I go too much about the problem, but I just need to let you know what the reality is, and that I'm keenly aware of the reality, that we are addressing from a super solutionary stance what the reality is, and that there is no cogent plan that I've seen or a process to develop such a plan that people could understand so that we could get and show that there is a plan B other than totalitarian China's thing or totalitarian Trump's thing or quietly still expert-led totalitarian Biden's thing. Give the keys to the people. How do we do that? We call it super solutionary. And the fundamental principles are pretty basic. Look for the super solutions. Get together, find your people who care about the same issues that you care about, and see whether there's a super solution there, right? There's probably a very much a leading set of solutions for dealing with animal cruelty or for helping the puppies and the kittens, right? There's probably some really good solutions there. And there's probably really good solutions for how to minimize the number of people who will need abortions or who will have access to proper self-governance awareness to not to have to require them in the places where it's offensive to people that happens. But even more so, there's probably some really standout things that we could do to really develop human potential. And the way that Abraham Maslow talked about this, he talked about a hierarchy of human needs. And what my understanding of what comes out of that is that when you give people their baseline so that they're not stressed about housing, so they have really good food, ideally the water's clean and there's enough of it around, you're not concerned about that. All that uses up energy. Having to do 2 or 3 jobs or chase the never-ending hamster wheel to be able to afford a house that gets smaller with more people in it, and it's the same house that was here 50 years ago. There's like maybe 3% new housing stock, and then and we're paying more and more for the same stuff. I live in Topanga for 20 years. There's like a pittance of new houses, but they've all been subdivided into like shared housing rooms and things. And we can't put up a damn new anything without a huge permit hassle. And the permit, I can't even get into it. Anyway, how do we actually make this work? You get people the tools to up-level themselves ongoingly. It's like a game of self-actualization as better players. That's number one. Get people to be in the game and off the sidelines, first to define their own lives and their goals and their missions, what they want to do, especially those people who want to make a difference. And then get them working together in collective intelligence. What does that mean? Or co-intelligence, community intelligence. It means you use the best practices for how to take people from all sorts of different points of view, sometimes polarized, usually not that polarized. We usually share the same goals, better education for less money, right? That works. However, that's going to work. Just give it, bring it, let's find it. Better healthcare and wellness for less money, that's more accessible, that makes everyone healthy, that doesn't cause so much, what is it, 20% of our economy devoted to healthcare, with a good solid chunk of it spent on the last 6 months or 3 months of life because people are afraid to die. Just grabbing onto all sorts of technology. It's just like, no, don't use all that stuff when the chances are like not that good. You can choose not to go for that and use up the future's, investable stuff to make the world better. And the same thing applies to, what is it, wellness, education, which I see as self-actualization anyway. It's the same thing. Housing, food and water, these are the basic ones. And then there's like a couple of other adjacent super solutions that we'll look at that can really power things up. But the main one is you get better players, personal intelligence, better team play, co-intelligence. And we apply better selves and better coordination, better team play. And then we start to look at where the main things are that we could align on and prioritize what should be addressed first together. While we also work on the things, if we have the bandwidth, that we individually care about in smaller groups. But the big stuff should be really all of us being able to gather and discern what those things are. So this conversation that we're going to be having is how the other category is community. Of course, we're going to have Tony Moss on today to talk about what new models of community building look like, how to get people connected in the way that the churches used to do, and the synagogues and the old forms of doing this and the clubs and whatever that we've lost. And there are some people who really have thriving communities. One of them is Tony Moss's Bird Tribe, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. At 2:30 today, we're having a little podcast interview. I don't think that one's going to be live. Got to wait until everyone's as crazy and courageous, or not courageous, just crazy like me. And by the way, I am still vaping, but we will wind up quitting this during this process. I'm starting with exactly where I am. And I'll share wildly about myself as we do this, because this is just how I am. Because we must all be that way. And think for a minute. So here's the really big thing. If we get it together to really activate, what is it, like 8 billion people on the planet, maybe 1% gets the kind of actualization that really brings out their best. Maybe 5% bootstrap it just by pulling it together, came from nothing and made something great. Small entrepreneur, big entrepreneur, whatever. There's like, how many entrepreneurs are there? How many like academics and leaders and things who really occupy positions of doing stuff? And there's a whole bunch, especially in millennial and alpha, Gen Alpha and whatever. I was just like, I don't even see a way to buy a house. I don't know what I'm going to do with my degree. I don't even know what I'm going to do with my life. So what happens? And then, of course, the rest of the, global South and most of the people in middle income countries, as well as in China and India, are still like people are making like, what is it, $20 or $50 a day or something? Average, I think it's like $20 a day is the average, or $25 a day is the average income around the world. Maybe it's gone up to 50. And what if we take what will be, by the time we get this to happen in 10 years or so, 8 billion people go from that to full-on activated participants in the global economy. The current global economy is about $431 trillion. That's how much is transacted, what they call gross national product or gross domestic product or whatever. The measurement is just a pretty good approximation. But right now we're saying with the status quo system, there's like 431 trillion that go around. But if we activate 10 times as many, maybe 20 times as many people in the next 10 years, and we tap into the superpowers of AI, quantum computing, endless fusion energy, because the AI will figure out the quantum computing piece faster, and then quantum computing plus AI will figure out the fusion faster. So it's within a short amount of time that we're going to have this superpower tool to actually drive all the innovation, more efficiency, more productivity, everything that we've experienced in the last couple of hundred years in the evolution of industrial, technological, creative society is now going exponential with these superpowers. And if we get our hands on the steering wheel and on the accelerator, and we steer it in the direction of general benefit together, and activate a lot of people to be able to steer even more intelligently than collective intelligence, combined with better community intelligence, including the heart stuff, will accelerate like human capacity and power, a release of human potential to steer that thing more intelligently and nimbly all the way away from the disaster edge and the cliff and towards paradise on earth, towards what some people call, our destiny as Eden. And the original design, but I don't know if it ever happened here before. I think it might just be built in us. It might be something that people have had an intuitive view of. But one way or the other, we want to start to make it fun, not painful in any way, but positive, constructive, something that you feel connected with your friends while you're doing, something that uses the technology to make it easy, and take these superpowers in a direction to actually create a lot more time for everybody and a more equitable distribution of the benefit of productivity, which is more time, more attention for the things that you love and you care about, more time for the things you want to repair, amend, and make beautiful or make more functional. And together really build a beautiful world that works for everybody. And that's the proposition of bringing better players and better team play so that 8 billion people get activated. And Greta Thunberg is someone who stood on the steps or in the front of the Swedish parliament to take a stand and say, environment isn't working, representing the future in so many ways. And it's true, the environment is a great urgency, but standing before that is the need to get people out of their stress and to see that if we can actually take care of human needs, we have proven that we merit the trust of people to say, well, if we could solve your human needs, affordable housing, good education, wellness, end of life, community, connection, responsible use of technology, communications and media that isn't confusing but beneficial and helpful, not wasting your time. If we can do that stuff, I'm pretty sure that in very short order, the same mass of people will say, well, yeah, let's give it a shot on the environment and take care of it as quickly as we can, by the way. Sorry we didn't get on this, but we were stressed about our lives. And then the whole thing works. And we can do it in short order. And with all those superpowers, even pull the carbon out of the air and whatever really quickly, but we need to do it in a way where society doesn't fall apart and wealth isn't too concentrated, that it's just a bunch of knucklehead future terrorist, eco and environmental terrorism and refugees and all this mess that would come if things really dismantle and devolve into like potentially nuclear, biological, chemical weapons being used here or there, or whatever. The catastrophes are right there. And the dismantlement of our system and the derailing and the spiraling downwards is right there. But if we go in the other direction, pretty sure everyone's going to say, take care of that little emergency here, use the collective intelligence on that, help them level up. And so what we're doing here is a microcosm of that, a microcosm of how we demonstrate what it is to do personal actualization. Everyone on the team at Super Solutionary will be participating in these conversations to share what they're up to and what lights them up and where they want to go in the world and what they're doing within Super Solutionary to make this thing work. I've got 15 minutes to explain a little bit about what Super Solutionary's direction is looking like. So we'll share a little bit about that in a minute. While I have a little puff. It's not that bad, by the way, compared to cigarettes. I'm finding I can breathe, I can exercise, I can do stuff. I'm not advertising for it. I think there's probably a healthier version of this that we'll crowdfund for later and create, but certainly it's a priority. Yeah. So the proposition is, how then do we do this? Where the thought leadership and the geniuses and the Web3 blockchain people and all sorts of ivory towers and think tanks and whatever tried and like grappled at this and they can't get a handle on it. No one sees a way. It's like, what's the way? How do we do collective intelligence? How do we do personal intelligence? Self-actualization to each have a path to be effectively helpful in this whole big lift, this moonshot. And do we all have to do a lot to make it happen? And I really don't believe so. I think it's really about coordination. Some people call sense making, or just making sense out of the world together to choose where to apply our collective power, our voting power, our buying power, our attention more than anything. How to collectively, incisively support each other to get in the right lane with the right information, the right people, and the right amount of time and commitment so that everyone can get in some way and contribute to supporting an intelligent advancement forward, something that reflects the general welfare. And the first thing, more than anything, is we can't find each other well. Even here with this team and with Super Solutionary, I'm cobbling together a team from people I can meet, I can reach, through who I know, where the reputation is sufficient, the convenience is there locally that I can start to work with them. So we just have an approximately good Super Solutionary team that meets my mission. I do this all day, every day, because it's my joy, I'm compelled to, and it's my mission to be a Super Solutionary, to model what it is to be a Super Solutionary, and to cajole, tease, and even pay my team to give it a shot. That's what we're doing. We're giving it a shot, and I'm giving it my best shot with a great team who I think are more and more enrolled in this, seeing that the opportunity to realize their missions, the things that they're passionate about to make the world better, have a much better chance if what we're doing comes true. And it begins by being able to find each other so that we have the support for what we're each most up to with the most capable mixed group of people who care about that same issue. So right now, you go on Facebook, you can find a lot of friends and stuff and groups and things, but it really isn't focused on this. TikTok, definitely not. It's just like, wow, what's clever or weird or funny or strange or accidental or jackass. Well, that's, good entertainment. Same with Netflix. Same with Google. I can find the kind of stuff that I want to, and ChatGPT will help me write a book or find a restaurant or things, but it's not really designed. None of them are designed with reward structures for the entire organization, executives, spokespeople, tech designers, course creators, everything, to make the world work and to discern what are the best solutions for each of our things, including ourselves. So super solutionary is literally looking, how do we generate super solutions for everything that is the most important first in our lives and in the world? And we need to get into a single directory that we can trust with our heart song. These are my personal goals. And this is what I wish for. These are my relationship goals for friendship or love or for family, for community. These are my career goals for self-expression, where I want to grow into. And this is my mission. This is what I want to see changed in the world that I'm most committed to. If you have that articulated in a digital way, which we can do really easily now, speaking to a chatbot, talking to a friend while the chatbot's listening, or having a little text message thread where the prompts are coming and you're just having a good time getting to know yourself, getting to know your friends, getting to know eventually, who are my mission mates? You get a little dashboard that shows you, that's my mission. Let me see if I can change that. Give me some more questions. That's closer. Yeah, I changed my mind about some stuff. My mission statement, some news about the things that I care about the most. No, that's too much. I've only signed up for 5 minutes a week. No, give me more. I'm in to actually see if there's some actions I can take. Oh, I can do this with my friends. Invite my friends to do this with me. Get enough people to do that. We have some really rich profile data that we will own, not in a private entity that's controlled by corporations or venture capital or rich, but it's going to be controlled by us. We're going to model this new model of co-intelligence society, new model of governance in this very enterprise. We might use Web3 stuff in the future, but basically it comes down to we own this database together in a cooperative. And it really is one person, one vote for that one, because everyone's a complete equal in that one, with maybe a reserve of the profit generating component of it, the surplus generating, because it will be very powerful in generating that super economy that we could grow into with 10 times as many people activated. Means 10 times the economy, means it's going to go somewhere, and it's going to go a lot to the people. We'll dole out some to the existing businesses and everyone to keep them happy. But the lion's share of the productivity gains in the next wave, when it goes from 400 trillion to 4,000 trillion, 10 times the economy, most of that is going to go to the benefit of people, common welfare, developing opportunity, intelligence, and really distributing that well this time in a way that's stable and robust. And that really comes to our having control over our personal information, because every transaction in the future will be transacted, if we get this together, based on our personal information. And we'll let businesses and apps and things and service providers and whatever make a good living, especially the best ones. Why not? But the lion's share of the benefit is going to stay with the people and be distributed to the people, and just seeing that productivity broadly distributed through this kind of a system. So 4,000 trillion of new economy, if not more, will come to us through this if we get those profiles together. So I know it might sound theoretical, but the experiential version will be, wow, this is Tinder for everything in my life. I'm so glad I got my profile in a place that I can trust and pour my heart out into, and that profile is just mine. No one else can see it unless I want to have anonymous matching. Who are my next best friends? Spotify search for discovery, who I might want to talk to about philosophy or puppies and kittens or helping my community locally. And the chatbot will put a couple of people, maybe a couple of organizations, and be like, tell me more about them. Why should I match with them? And then you're like, oh, well, you know what? Introduce a chat with that person, with that organization. It looks like there's a fit. You try it out. It's like dating. It's like Tinder for your life, is what we're proposing. And pretty early on, you're going to find some satisfaction. These are better matches than I ever had before from the accidental dumb information system. Oh, this is information I actually care about an issue that I care about, that through this filter is really providing me with solutions, with actionable things I can do, like support. Tell me when you guys are ready for electoral advice or whatever you've got. And you start to see co-intelligence showing up, a different kind of thinking, of solutions that really bring people together broadly. And that will be an ethic of the community, is that the solutions we offer are solutions that get supermajority support for what they're up to. That they'll start with businesses because we're not dealing with the political that way. You can just start with, well, what can we just do together that might actually be so valuable that it generates a profit right off the bat? Not everything has to be government. And that's blue sky. If you're creating new businesses, new opportunities, a new app marketplace for satisfying your essential needs based on our profiles, you can actually see a lot of businesses, small ones emerge, new algorithms emerge, big companies adapting towards us more incisively because our profiles are clear. And we start matching with our friends that are more incisively the ones who can help us with coaching, or more incisively the ones that can cut our hair the way that we want to, or more incisively the ones that can deliver education that responds to ourselves or our kids for our growth, for resolving trauma, for living more healthily, for everything. So it's this pairing of AI with human or collective human intelligence. So artificial intelligence is this amplifier, and if we use it, just like the big machines and the companies and everyone is using it, we can start to get benefit for us. So that's the general theory of change, and we're going to make it fun. Fun as we can, so that you get on the landing page and you just start playing the game of self-discovery. Invite your friends and do some collective discovery. Take that same online experience that you have in a chat and you just warm up for dinner and just like, bring us a couple of good prompts and we'll each look at the different prompts and choose which the prompt could be for dinner. And then boom, drop a couple of prompts in a dinner that have been fine-tuned for our profiles, what we're interested in, what we've been doing in our lives. And wow, you've got a lively conversation over a meal. Start with friends. We've done that enough with enough people in the room, we can actually really start to find our mission mates, the people who would like to solve the problems that we care most about. And once we've done enough problem solving and find, what will generally be is like copy paste from other ideas and solutions elsewhere. This one looks good, Scott. What do you think of this? What do you think about this one for regenerative co-living, or this or that, or the other things I'm passionate about? No, oh, these are the consensus best solution in California for affordable regenerative living is general consensus on that. Let's activate that. Anyone who cares has suddenly now got a really strong consensus solution that gets red state folks to see, wow, we're going to create a lot of jobs next to Bakersfield. And that's pretty good country homes for us. And a lot of regular folks in the city from all sorts of spectrums saying it would be really nice to have access to affordable country living. And I can get out of Dodge while it's summertime and the kids have camp and I can do some remote work and rent my place out, Airbnb in any part of LA. It's worth tons in the summer and the holiday seasons, and go out to the country for a little bit. Northern California, Southern California, villages, everywhere. Wow, that'll work great. Let's make that happen for 1/10 the cost of building in the city. Anyway, the solutions are all going to come out like I talked about, the kid in his room with a floor full of solutions. The future is already here. The solutions are already here. They're a mess on your floor. And we have to just not just pull up the funnest ones, but the funnest ones that'll make the most difference first and make them even funner and make them even better. And then the world starts to work. You start to see that we got our profiles in there. We're finding our mission mates. We're finding our solutions. We're finding the way to take the next step to activate those solutions, to get jobs, realizing those solutions, and to learn the things that we need to get those jobs. As the robots and the AI take away all the other jobs, plan B is to get organized this year. so that we know what we're going to do next and start to create businesses together that will own together, like the data system will own together. We'll still reward really good performance, risk taking, innovation, great sales and enrollment, all those things that deserve to be rewarded, but not someone sitting on a couch somewhere swapping shares for what we're doing. Just the people who make it happen. The rest of the cap table, the rest of the profitability goes to the purpose. And I think the general figure should be something like 10% goes to reward the stakeholders who make a difference, the employees, the investors, the creators, the innovators, the hard workers, the plumbers, the people who take up the stinky stuff. Incentivize those people really well. And then the rest of the money, instead of going to shareholders, it goes to serve the purpose, research and development, and actually making sure that whatever we're producing in this whole ecosystem can go to the people who can't afford to buy it. Foster youth, people in the bottom 20% of zip codes, First Nations folks who aren't in zip codes, or they are in zip codes, but they're not in the like ones that we usually govern. And then we spread these systems, starting businesses this way that model the new society way, like we're doing in our organization itself. So we're doing this publicly so everyone can see every process, learn about every person in the organization, follow whoever you're curious about. I'm hoping that more people on team will start to just create their own vlogs like this as part of the team to share what they're up to. And then we'll take gold nuggets from them. They'll be in conversations with me. And then we'll see how people grow, how we transform individually, how this company does this collectively, how shared benefit and stake and the allocation of incentive intelligently to get results and to reward people for doing their best work can all be woven in together so that we have both fairness and a baseline of stability and safety for people, but also, limits so that there's a strong incentive to actually focus one's energy on the work that needs to get done for the collective benefit. If super solutionary can't thrive, right, the jobs are going to go away. But if super solutionary thrives, there's an opportunity for me to thrive. That happens internally. We're going to develop the applications and try things out, and almost like a competitive marketplace for which solutions actually get people satisfied to stick around, to spread the word, to make our functionality better for this whole thing so that the game works better, so that the app works better, so that our events and our onboarding process works better, so that enrollment works better, so that our social content and explainers are better. And so more and more people getting involved to help make this happen, everyone's going to get shares along the way, or what we call profit shares is the way that I've been advised it will be structured, but we'll share more about that in the future. And then we create this better world together. Anyway, that's the whole thing. It's a bit of a Rube Goldberg. I'm a bit of a Rube Goldberg. One of those wild machines that has lots of parts and things, and I can see the whole thing. Inside, I know where it goes. And I just have to stick with it and experiment with you and the team and everyone and get feedback from everyone. And hopefully a lot of people are really contributing their best to help make this happen. So this is the first flare in this round. And I'm in a relentless way. All my energy, all my time, all my love, all my care for three things. The 3 billion kids whose lives and futures depend on this, my heart, my channel is listening to them, is doing my best to imagine, am I spending my energy and time in a way that is the best allocation for guaranteeing them the best possible future? Am I spending my time and energy, my attention, in a way that is guaranteeing them the best possible future? Right? One where every child is free to live in joy and at play, including our inner ones, in loving families that live in communities, in harmony with each other, and with thriving gardened earth everywhere. Right? Paradise on earth. And beautiful, clean, fun cities to go and visit, though I don't think that's going to be the strong attractor. I have a strong hunch we're going to move out of the cities and not build seawalls to protect cities when we could build out an entire beautiful garden world. I might be wrong. Maybe people will always love to live among walls and air conditioning on asphalt streets with no life in tiny little pockets of green where everyone assembles their precious big buildings around. What does that say? The worship of nature around Central Park, around every wealthy neighborhood. And then when they finally do get a taste because of COVID or other things, they leave the city. What does that say? What does that suggest to you where it might go? That's one. It's the 3 billion that we're doing this for. The other is the future generations from the greatest timelines. There are many possible ways this can go, but there's, I don't know, maybe 1 trillion potential future people. As it spreads out, maybe hundreds of trillions will all go. More like that is going to get us to where we are in a future reality. This beautiful reality that we're in the future all hinges on your actions right now, Scott. Brum. Can you hear us? It's beautiful down here in the future. Which of your actions are incisively, carefully selected to be the most high impact, positive in the way that you're conducting yourself right now, that's consonant with the ends? So you are in that future right now. And you're creating that future by being really careful about where you put your energy. Is it a shiny little object? Is it a sentimental response to a need? Am I playing whack-a-mole? Am I being strategic and inspiring and careful about where I apply my energy in pragmatic focus? You can be spiritual up and down the wazoo, but until it comes down to applied practical impact and incisively selected to be the best choice of action, if you have not looked for the best super solutions for yourself, for your community, or the world, you are playing blind. Until we do that collectively, we are driving blind. Look at the dashboard. If there's only one measure, more money, that's a problem. If the dashboard says, oh, this is really making a difference on essential human needs, and it's vital, it's got money coming in, and the team is happy and nourished, wow, now we got something. Positive impacts in the environment and ecosystem, that's a bonus. Add some incentive reward for all these things in the right measures, and we get the world that we want. We're driving a vehicle with a dashboard with multiple instrument display instead of just more money, fear of disaster, fear of and reactivity to that news thing. Thanks, Tigger. Tigger always shows up. Maybe he's always going to show up at the end of these things. I don't know. Thanks, buddy. Want some hot chocolate? And then the third thing is source. I'm tuning into what nature seems to want, what humanity seems to want. And I really go for personifying the totality as what some people have called God. I'm interacting with an interface that is the total totality. If you, by your sentimental attachment to your experience, attribute personhood to the people you know, when we know there's no person there based on the science, it's all just atoms and quarks and muons and dark matter somewhere around and within it. There ain't no stuff. There's no particles. That's science. If you haven't read through the science, the guys that make all the phones and the quantum computers and the fusion energy and the nuclear bombs that blow up, they all say there's nothing there. So you're not there, and I'm not here, but the interface suggests that we are, and I really do believe I take the interface at face value. I'm Scott. I'm Bro. You're you. Tigger is Tigger. And just because you can't recognize the totality as a thing doesn't mean it isn't one. Just because you haven't been willing to attribute personhood to the absolute totality and all of humanity and all of nature as one organism doesn't mean that it isn't one. It might be. And what's interesting is when you start to just play the game of attributing personhood to the totality, to all of humanity and nature as one, just makes you connected to the whole thing. The way that the First Nations say all my relations, aho matakwe asin, hail, yo, I love you. What's really important is all my relations, aho matakwe asin, or however they say it. I'm mistranslating for sure. It's not my language. Our people say it this way: Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. It's actually Yah. Adonai is a euphemism because they don't like to say the holy four-letter name. And it literally means God, the great name or nameless one, the totality that has no name, because anytime you contract it, that's kind of a form of idolatry and contraction of something that's infinite and that speaks through any kind of signal and voice and experience. It's all around, it's within, it's beyond comprehension and beyond perception. All the future possible things and past things that have happened, all of it that's present in this moment is that thing, is that being. All the wise people who have had the greatest emanations in terms of lingering wisdom, respect, catalytic effect in the world, all of them, except for the Buddha, attribute personhood. Even the followers of the Buddha attribute personhood in so many ways to the totality, the Tao, the Abrahamic traditions, Zoroastrian, the descendants of all these traditions who created so many good things. And I think implicitly the scientists just want to stand back and just see what it is and what it says. Once you get into perceiving the world through mathematics, you're in the abstraction of finding personhood in a very strange way. So I'm going on a little bit of a detour here, but it's kind of important to grok. When you're playing in separation, you're not with it. When you grok the name, everything perceivable is creator, and that it's one, as my tribal tradition says, as a mantra, it changes the way you play. It changes your commitment to the 3 billion kids, to the possible people of the future and the best possible timelines, and to creator itself. And I'm totally fine with anyone being, I don't see it, I don't feel it, I don't even need to talk about it. I just live my life. That's fine. That's totally fine. But doing this in the good work anyway. But those of you who do believe, there's an opportunity for the super Messiah thing to happen through a collective enterprise that I've dubbed the We-Siah. It might or might not come as an individual, but it looks for sure to me that if we get it together, we collectively channel an intelligence that is divine, that is sublime in its intent, that is sublime in its outcome, even with a messy group of us. And the more of us in there doing it elegantly and well, the more we shake out the best of all of us rising up like cream. The more we're in correspondence where 100% of people say, that's good, let's do that, that will get done. That's the hand of God. The We-Siah is very powerful and it requires 100% consent from everyone participating. Supermajority is good. 75% is very much stronger than what we have now. 50% beating each other over and over again. Zero-sum few taking control of things. Getting 75%, 95% in agreement, 100% or near 100% in agreement, that's some very good solutions. It's like if I was tasting a soup, I would be like, This is maybe the perfect soup. That's where we're going. This is maybe the perfect solution. Welcome to Super Solutionary. It's not simple, but it's really obvious. All right, over and out for today. I love you. Goodbye. Go to we're still streaming, for Christ's sake. Hey, Mr. Man. And live says mute. Yeah. Let's see how to stop this thing. That's funny. Pause. That's good. I just want to stop the thing. I stop it. Almost there. Oh, I did stop that. Nothing's Zoom's closed. Yes.